Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. My name is Invin and today I'm going to be bringing you guys a video on some of my best tips and tricks and kind of ideas and strategies for invasions on New World. Now, as a lot of you guys will probably already know if you've managed to participate in any of these whatsoever so far, they're actually pretty tough. There isn't many people who have managed to fully beat this yet, so what I'm aiming to do today is give you guys some of our best tips and tricks from times we've lost, things we needed to do that we didn't, and of course, the times that we've done really, really well, what we did well, why it worked, so that you guys can kind of get a better understanding. What I will do in the future as well, next time we get a really good win, is break that down in gameplay form for you guys and kind of bring it to you as a full succession so you can watch it all the way through and see what actually happens. But right now, these are just going to be some general tips for getting further so that ultimately you can get less downgrades on your settlement. So, starting off here then, obviously you've got to make use of the cannon placement. If you are the owners of the defending town or the people that do own it, should be placing specific things. And of course you're going to want repeaters. You're going to want obviously the harpoon towers to take out the enemy siege. The cannons are really good for enemy siege and taking out heavy enemy units. And of course the oil vats again for when they are pushing those doors. And you're going to want to make sure that people are looking after those in terms of refilling it and in terms of course, keeping the upkeep up when it does get hit by enemy siege or weapons and they do take some damage. You're going to want someone repairing those. Ideally, what I like to do in my walls is get 1 or 2 teams that only take the repair parts. Obviously, this can be a little bit difficult because, as we all know, it's random fill, so you often get a lot of random people in, dipping in and out, which is why it can be hard to get further in these game modes. But ideally, if you can organise it so that you get, say, groups 1 and 2 that take the repair parts, and their job is to rotate around, help where needed, cover the inside of the fort as well, because the enemy siege that launches the bisons, which looks absolutely wacky, that actually puts eggs inside the fort, which spawns enemies, the little grunts in there, so you're going to want to make sure you take those out early doors so they don't damage the middle tower before you actually get a breach of the gates. And of course, that team can then go around and repair any gates should they get damaged. Now, you will want to make sure that you've got at least, I would say, 1 repeater and 1 harpoon tower on each of the different points. So right gate, left gate, middle gate, and the backside. So that you are able to take out the enemy siege successfully. And of course, support your team from the battlements there as well. One other thing that you're going to want to make sure you're doing is placing the inferno traps when the bosses arrive. Now, a lot of people make the mistake of stockpiling these in the middle of the fort, which can actually be quite detrimental to your team, as you do obviously have that 15 cap. Ideally, what you want to be doing with these is placing them outside of the gates or waiting for a boss enemy to spawn, saving a few of these up on each of the teams at the gates that are defending, and then when the boss does come there and starts hitting the gate, place the traps underneath them. You'll do a ton of damage very, very quickly, and this can be really, really effective. Now, obviously, team composition is ideal. Roughly, you're going to want 1 healer, 1 tank, and a couple of DPS at each of the gates. Probably you want to double that up and have maybe 2 teams of each there. But of course, as I mentioned before, this is generally random fill. You can kind of kick people out and it puts other people back in, but it is very clunky and basically you can't pick your ideal team. So obviously you want to spread those out as much as possible. Generally, I like to just do it by groups. I'll say groups 3 and 4, you're at middle gate, groups 5 and 6, left gate, 7 and 8, right gate, etc. 9 and 10 at the back, something along those lines. And basically, this just gives people the opportunity to group up together. You can then kind of rotate players. So, for example, 7 and 8 don't have a healer, but 9 and 10 have 2. Swap one of those players around in that group so that they can then switch to the gate and you can get another DPS wherever they had the other one. And this generally kind of tends to work out. You generally get someone with a life staff, even if they're not a main healer, some paladins or something along those lines. Then you can swap that out, get involved there, which is really, really good. Now, like I briefly mentioned before, the bison launchers do actually put eggs inside, so you are going to want a team watching the inside, as what this will do is actually hatch those grunts. Like I said, they attack the middle tower, but on top of that, they will also attack the workshop and the armory, which means that you'll be able to not get repair parts, and you won't be able to buy upgrades, so things for your battle tokens like ammunition, traps, potions, etc. So this is going to be really, really important to make sure that you have got a team watching the inside from roughly wave 2, 3 onwards. But as soon as you see a ballista launching those bison over the top, you won't miss them. Make sure you have got a team protecting the inside that rotate back for that, just to make sure that obviously you're not getting backdoored, as it were, by the enemies. Now, another really important thing is when you get the boss enemies is to focus these down. Generally, people will call this in chat, so they'll say a brute right, commander left, whatever it is. And generally, most times, if you've got around 8 to 10 people at that gate, they can deal with that quite effectively without the door taking too much damage, particularly if they've got a tank, and taunt does work in invasions, so you can generally tend to taunt the rest of the enemies, like the ads, if you will, or the main boss itself. But when you've got a Spriggan, you will need 3 or 4 people to group around this, stop its charge and hold it back from the gate. This is mainly because the Spriggans do a ton of damage to the gates, and when they get into the middle, it's essentially a 6 shot from a full HP, I think, so very, very overpowered. You want to make sure that you get those down as quick as possible, block their path in, and just generally try and keep them away from the middle. Obviously, they do the most damage out of everything, but when they break down a door, all the other mobs combined, it's going to make it very, very tricky to defend. So ideally keeping the mobs out the gate for as long as possible. When they do break in, get your traps down, have everybody rotate to defend that, and try and just repair that gate as quick as possible, and you should be okay. But it does have to be dealt with quite quickly, because as I said there, if the Spriggans get on the middle pillar, it's kind of GG. So yeah, try your best to prevent that. Another really, really good thing that you can do as well, of course, is use the cannons that are on the inside. A lot of people kind of flail around and forget about this when the enemies do breach. There is 2 cannons inside the fort, which if the grunts haven't been able to get in beforehand and destroy those, they'll still be active, and they can do a lot of damage to these big mobs, particularly the Spriggans, with them being the cannon towers. If you've got those in there, they're explosive, so they do a little bit extra damage. So I would always recommend having 2 cannons in there just in case the Spriggan does break through. And of course, this will give you a little bit of extra damage and survivability if they do get into that main kind of area, which undoubtedly will happen, but you want to try and prevent this and get that stage over with as quick as you can and repair the gates to get the enemies back outside. Now, if any of you have got to kind of the 7th and 8th wave, you will know that you get big Mr. Skull, flying skull head that shoots laser beams out of his eyes. Very crazy. Killing this guy is pretty tough. Generally, what we like to do is focus the rest of the mobs and kind of just kite him around, get him out of the way, shoot his siege at him, that sort of thing. Generally, this is going to be quite a difficult wave. Wave 7 is when you start to get like 2 or 3 Spriggans. You'll get 4 or 5 brutes, couple of priests, couple of commanders. It generally gets pretty chaotic at this point, and you will need all of your groups really coordinated. Repairing probably 2 or 3 of the doors, making sure that you focus on those, purposefully maybe letting the enemies in somewhere else so that you can focus really in on keeping those repairs parts. And of course, with that, what I would aim to do is then hold them on the insides, have a couple of tanks there ready to attack, and have the DPS ready to just burn these enemies down as soon as they come through the gates, so that they're not getting too close to the main pillar. And if they do get close to it, they're not doing it much damage because they are dying quickly. It is very, very tough overall, but these are some of kind of the best ways I've found to prevent the loss incoming, but it still is very, very hard. So of course, as I say there, you can't fill, and so you are going to have to just get random fill teammates in. So putting stuff in the army chat is going to be really, really crucially important. Generally putting in things like team 1 and 2 do this, team 2 and 3 do this, kind of giving people an overall game plan seems to be the best thing I've found to work. So that's what I would recommend in terms of communication. But of course, if you get all your own players in, you get to pick 10 and then get as many allies in that manage to join up through the kind of random fill as you possibly can. Get everybody in a Discord if possible, or whatever, you know, kind of voice comms you want to use there. This can be really good. And of course, you do have the in-game voice chat capacity too to speak to your own group, so you can always use that as well. So hopefully you guys have found this video useful. It is very, very difficult to successfully defend a full 30 minutes versus an invasion, as they are very, very powerful. As more people progress towards endgame, we're seeing more people pick up that void armor. Of course, we know about the void gauntlet and stuff coming from the PTR now, so hopefully this will make things a little bit easier, or will change up the meta a little bit, so we've got more of an advantage versus these enemies. So it should be fun going forward, but keep trying them. If anybody's got any tips and tricks that are important for winning that I have missed out of this video, be sure to drop them in the comments below. Let's share the wealth of knowledge and see if together we can get better at consistently winning these invasions, because they are very, very tough. Other than that, guys, as always, if you are new to the channel, make sure you drop in that subscribe. I do upload every single day, so it'd be amazing to have you here as part of my channel community. Other than that, guys, thank you very much for watching. Thanks for your time. Take care and peace.